Hey guys, it's M4J here and welcome to a timetabling / scheduling tutorial here on OpenTTD. This is episode 14.5 of the M4J network. If you want to check out the other, I think there's 16 episodes if you include the half episodes as well, you're more than welcome to do so. The playlist will be in the description down below and it will also appear on the end card of this video. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk to you about timetabling and scheduling. Now hopefully you can see what I'm moving the cursor around on right now. This, let me just check that is actually working. It's hard to do when you're only using one screen, but this is my service schedules sheet. Again, there is a link to it in the description, those of you that want to go check it out. This is where I have all of my service schedules for every franchise on the map. So here's the Guard City Great Northern, West Winds, Great Eastern, which is now United Trains, so I need to change that. Eastern United Trains, Great Western, Western reaches north, Hatfield Light Railway, which is probably the longest of them all because of the number of stops. You can see there's 5 different routes currently in the HLR. There's probably going to be a 6th one added in the not too distant future. And then over here is the Guard City Overground, which is what we're going to be using today as our test bed, shall we say, for this episode. So this structure that you're looking at here on in the game, this is Buntown Overground Depot. Buntown itself is here. It's actually the other side of the Grand Canal. Is this the Grand Canal? No, this is Grontfield River. So it's the other side of the Grontfield River from the depot, but that's fine. You know, it's the nearest town. Plus you can see there was actually roads that came across which I need to rebuild. So this is Buntown Overground Depot. As you can see, it's dual voltage. We've got the third rail and we've also got the overhead electrification, and this connects to our overground network just south of Slenston, which is why it had to be dual voltage, because we will have trains that are only overhead electrification and they'll head north up this way towards Guard City St Christopher, Guard City St George, not Flame Junction, Bunhattan and Woodside. And then if they're third rail only, they'll head east towards Guard City St John, Guard City St Thomas, Guard City St Mark, which I need a turn back siding for, as well as Dinpool East. I'm trying to remember the names of the stations and the net come into mind. I can't remember the names of all of them. But yeah, they're all on the third rail. I suppose towards Great Winfield Airport as well, and places like that. So today, I'm actually going to use a service schedule that I've already planned, which is not that. Why can't I go? Here we go. So this is the Guard City Overground Loop that we've got here. It runs between Guard City St George and Guard City St George via all of these stations. The standouts here, I suppose, are Ley Hill, where it connects with the Northern City Line, the Capital Line. That's what it's called, Capital Line. We've also got some other connections, so Gloucester Gardens, where it connects with other overground lines. I think it's Neffingbourne and Garthill, where it connects to the tram. Somewhere down here, one of these also connects to the tram. I think Brendington Indigo Junction, it connects to the Eastern United Trains. Woodside is kind of a little hub. It connects to the metro there, and it also has a bus station. New Rennington, which is a massive station, which I think I've shown you now because you saw me build it last episode, episode 14. And then GSMA, which is actually a little wayside station beside the main station. It's still part of the same complex, but it's not like a massive major interchange. New Rennington is actually the major interchange. And then we've got places like GSP, the Genfords, or Genford, Slenston, and some other stations. I'm not going to go into that too much because I actually want to get the trains built and running. So we need a dual voltage train, and considering we're set in the 1980s at the moment, and the class 313 isn't available in OpenTTD, I'm not quite sure why that is. But that does make life a little tricky. So I think what we're actually going to have to do is get a 319 and put it in a different livery. I think that's what we're going to have to do. Either that or we use something like this, but the capacity on this is terrible. So I'd rather not use that if I can absolutely help it. I don't think there's any dual voltage trains in the European packs that we could use. Don't think there are. These are all metro trains, so I don't really want to use metro, even though it is technically a metro. I don't really want to use those. I want to keep it as British as possible, so I think we are going to have to just bite the bullet and do the 319s. Let's see, shall we? So down here is all the British trains, all the British electric trains, and somewhere, or maybe the 315s? You 315? Yeah. Are you dual voltage? Let's check that a second. Hang on. The way you check it is you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and you look to see if the 315 is also on this list. If it is, then good stuff, and it's not. Bad stuff. We have got things like the 375s, the 376s, 377s. These are all modern stuff, though. You can see design date 2002. So I think the 319, which was designed in 1987, is kind of at the tail end of our limit at the moment. Either that, or we just use diesel for the time being. Like the turbos, no, they're 93. This has been the hardest part of this series, actually, is deciding on trains to use that match the era in which we're supposed to be representing. So let's open this one up again. And the idea is just to see how many of these actually match. So we've got the 411s there. Hang on. Because we've got to make sure that some of these are overhead electrification as well. Just minimize that one for a second. So this is where you go into this one and you build a this one, and you build another depot right next to it, and then you go into this. This isn't even, we're not even at timetabling and stuff yet. We will get there though, I promise. Just making sure that we're selecting the right trains. So down here is all of the trains that we've got available. Things like the 305, sorry. Is that on this? Don't think it is. I think the 319 is the only one. The 315 isn't on there. If we scroll down a bit further, yeah. All right, we're gonna have to go with the 319s. That's fine. And because we've done that, we can now just go through and delete these, like so. We'll pin this one for now. It's always good to have the rail tool open when you're timetabling trains, just in case. So we'll the 319s. Forgot the number then. And we'll have 2 units per train, like so. Okay, so we pin this, and this is the first overground train on the overground network. So let's give it an interesting livery. That's not that interesting. So what's this? Network Southeast Grey? No. First Capital Connect, maybe? That's quite interesting. Alright, we'll use that. We'll leave this open for now, but we'll make it small, and we'll pin it here. Okay, first step of the tutorial, and we're only, what, 10 minutes in. So always do the depot first. It's one thing I've discovered. Always do the depot first. And then you do this twice. Now again, just like with the signal tutorial I did a few weeks ago, this is how I do things. It's not necessarily the best way, and it can vary by patch. So I'm playing on Joker's Patch Pack version 1.27.1. I know that there are other versions of the game out there that do behave slightly differently depending on what you tell it to do. Yeah, there's all kinds of things. I know there's one patch, I think it's JGR's, that has something called scheduled dispatch, which Joker's patch does not have at this current time. It might have it in the near future though. I'm not 100% sure. I actually need to check in on that. but that might make life a little bit easier. But for now, this is how I timetable trains in this patch. So, depot, and then we do this little turn back, which is essentially all this is really, is turn back. Although this, in the M4J network, this is actually the depot, and this is like the wheel turning facility or something like that. So they behave slightly differently in terms of realism as they do in terms of game mechanics. Why is that not working? It's weird. Okay, so then we do the approach twice. Always do it so that you add them twice, and then you select the bottommost one, and you then go across here and then select the next order. So it always puts it, it's like a sandwich, and that's how you get it to work. Likewise, here we actually have to go through Slenston Station, but make sure that these are set to non-stop via, so the train actually travels through the station and doesn't stop at the station. Well, I was about to say maybe it should stop here for the power change, but there isn't a power change because it's already running on overhead at this point. Likewise, here at Genford, I'm just going to do Genford North, I should say. I'm just going to do this as well because I know that the signal here at Slenston actually relies on trains having the next order being Genford North in order to let them into that platform. So again, just to do that. So you see here, I should actually explain what I'm doing here as I'm doing it. So you've got 4 options under this tab. You've got go to, go non-stop to, go via, and go non-stop via. Now go to and go via, they are like endpoints essentially. So say for example you have a main line. This doesn't fit in with my network, but I know some people do just have networks where they build 8-track main lines, and they have a big station at one end and then they have a big station at the other end. Go to and go via works best for those scenarios where you have stations in between that you also want your trains to stop at, but you don't care what platform they stop in or anything like that. So you'll set it to go to, let's choose a better example, in this case Guard City St George, and then up the other end you've got Honningville. You'll set go to, and then any station that it goes through on the way, for example up here at Plint Bridge Parkway, it will actually stop at and pick up cargo or drop off cargo, and in this case passengers count as cargo. Go via does the same thing, so it will go via Plint Bridge Parkway. I'm not sure if it will stop at Plint Bridge Parkway, but any stations along the way and any stations afterwards it will stop at and also pick up cargo. Go non-stop to and go non-stop via do the same thing, but any stations that the train passes along the way, it will not stop, it will carry on. So I actually have that set as default, as you can see, on my network, just so that I make sure that my train doesn't stop at anywhere that it's not supposed to stop at. That's the simple reason why I do that. Right, so I think I can have the train continue now as far as Barnwell Crescent, where I'll make it go through twice. Non-stop via. Non-stop via. Then we've got this side of things, which it needs to go to. Now these waypoints, it will always be a non-stop via. You do actually have the choice to reverse at a waypoint. So say there's a turnback junction just here. I can make the train come through here to this waypoint and then turn around and actually come back, cross over and go through here, which is actually quite handy for stations where you have a dead end or you have services that terminate there but you also have a line that continues. It's actually a good way of doing that. It's not something I've really utilised much in this map, but it's something that I might do in the future because that is quite a nifty trick, shall we say. I think I will do a non-stop via here as well, just again for signalling purposes. I don't think I've actually done the signals for Little Flanville yet, which is something that I should probably get on with and do. Alright, so one of the big things is coming up now. So here at GSG, we want the train to call out twice. We're actually going to have the train call it GSG 3 times during the course of its journey, but for now it's only going to be here twice. One of these, however, and this is where my scheduling might differentiates slightly from others is on the second one I'm going to have it unload and not load, and then I'm going to add something called a conditional order jump, and I'm going to set that for the first one. And then here on the conditional order jump you've got many options. That's my phone giving me notifications. I'll read those in a second. So here you've got multiple options. You've got load percentage, reliability, maximum speed, age, remaining lifetime, requires service, waiting cargo, accepted cargo, free platform, slot occupancy, percent of times, and always. Always is quite simple. It means it will, whenever the order list reaches this conditional order jump, it will always jump to whichever one you tell it to. So in this case, order 12 is the one that I've told it to jump to. Then you've got things like load percentage. So if your train is, say, 50% full, you can dictate what stations it then calls at using conditional order jumps. Reliability is the one that I'm actually going to use for this, so I'm going to set it quickly. Here you've got the more than or less than, and then the equal tos as well. So I always say if reliability is more than 20, which is just a bog standard number, then it will jump up here and, well, I'll tell you what that is in a second. You've also got other things here like age, whether it's it's remaining lifetime. So if it's coming towards the end of its lifespan, you can send it to a depot, for example, and have it auto renew. Requires service, which is what I used to use, but because I turned breakdowns off, requires service I think gets affected by that. So I actually do it now by reliability. Waiting cargo. So I think when I did signaling, I compared it to Factorio, and I'm going to compare this to Factorio as well. So waiting cargo, in Factorio you can turn on and off stations according to whether there's actually cargo waiting to be picked up, and that's kind of what this is. So if you have a station like Guard City St George that only has passengers waiting at a certain time, you can actually have trains skip stations unless there are people waiting there. I think that works best for buses in this world that I've created here. So sometimes if there's no one waiting at a bus stop and no one's pressed the bell to get off the bus, then the bus will skip the stop. So you can actually have that as a conditional order. Then you've got things like accepted cargo, so the train will only stop at the station if the cargo that it's currently carrying is accepted there. So that's for things like goods, coal, mail. It doesn't really work for passengers because most passenger stations will be built in the middle of cities where it will always be accepted. Free platforms, so again it will only, Guard City St George is another good example. If all of these platforms are full, then the train might skip the order and go to the next one. Slot occupancy, I think that is to do with block signaling. So if you have a signal block like this line here, between this signal here and this signal here, this section of track is a block. Now I think what it means is if this section of track is occupied, I don't know how you actually, because I've never used this one before, but I think it's saying if this slot is occupied, then jump to a different order. I'm not sure how you set this block as being the one that is factored in. Maybe there is an additional, an additional option that appears. Yeah, undefined. So you'll click on that. Don't actually have an option to click on that, so maybe that doesn't work in this. I don't know. I need to set this up again. And then finally you have percent of times. So percent of times is what, when I first came up with this idea of having trains looping around constantly, that was what I was originally going to do. So 99 times out of 100 it would jump back up, and then on the 100th time it would continue down. But I wanted it to be a little less predictable than that, because in real life trains break down all the time, and that affects timetabling and scheduling. So I wanted to actually make it so that if you look at the reliability, you'll obviously know when the train's going to loop round or not. But if you're just looking at the station here, you don't necessarily know which trains are going back to the depot, which trains are starting their journey again. Okay, so now that's done, I'm going to pin that really quickly, and I'm going to start talking you through the actual timetabling. Now, like I said, there is a patch with a feature called Scheduled Dispatch, which is actually what I would prefer to use for the M4J network. Because Scheduled Dispatch, you tell your trains, I want a train to leave on this schedule on the hour. So every time this rolls around, this little time here, ignore the date, just look at the time. So every time this will come around, so let's say every half hour. Sorry, I got a little pop-up then. This is on 21:29 at the moment. So if this ticks over to 21:30, there should be a train at GSG waiting to leave to go on its journey. So you could say every half an hour, or every 15 minutes, or every 10 minutes, or every 5 minutes even, if you're running a very frequent service. And there should always be a train waiting to leave at that time. And it will always either be held, or it will leave early, so that it always hits that time. This doesn't have that. This has separation settings, which I'll talk about in a second. First thing I'm going to do, though, is actually set the times. So stops, where it says go non-stop 2, you always have the ability to change the time. And this is the amount of time that the train waits at the stop. So for me, the depot is always a bog standard 14,400 ticks. Because of the way I've got the game settings set up, 14,400 ticks is 1 hour. So if it arrives at 21:29, it won't leave the depot until 22:29. These depots, which are the turnaround sidings, which you saw, which in real life would actually be the depot, I always set it to half of that. So 14,400 is an hour, 7,200 is half an hour. Likewise at GSG, in this case, I actually have it set to 20 minutes, and I have a little converter here. So 20 minutes equals 1,200 seconds, and that also equals 4,800 ticks. You can see here ticks per minute is 240. So it's this number times this number equals that number, and that is 4,800. So Guard City St George here, 4,800. This Guard City St George is also 4,800, because whether it's actually going to return on its journey or whether it's going to return to the depot, it should always sit at the station for the same amount of time. And then finally here is another 7,200, because this is where it goes in and out of the depot again. So that's that done. Next up is speed limits. Now speed limits is where it says travel not timetabled, or I think when it's actually a complete timetable it says something slightly different. Let's grab a train that actually has a timetable complete. So yeah, it says travel for however many ticks at it used to say at a speed of, but now it says at most, with at most 10 miles per hour. So that's when it comes in and out of the depot, and that's actually my speed limit for all depots is 10 miles an hour. Now ignore the fact that it says 0 here. Let me just check you can actually see this. Yes you can, good. Just making sure that the Google Sheets thing wasn't encroaching upon this. So ignore the fact that it says 0. There is a slight graphics glitch. Lieutenant Joker knows about it. Because it's not game breaking as such, it makes it a little annoying, because if I go away for an hour and come back, I might forget that that's supposed to be 10. So I might have to go on here and you can click change and the box comes up and you can see that it says 10. So that's that, and then here we've got another 10. And then coming out of the depot it's 20, and then 30. And then going into GSG, the speed limit is also 10, and then 20, and then 30. Now here's a little trick. You can do this for both stopping and for speed limits. All of these really need to be 30, apart from the ones where it comes in and out of the depot and in and out of the stations. So the easiest way to do this is actually to hover over change speed limit, hold control, click, change it to 30, and you can see all the speed limits now have actually been changed. Again, ignore the numbers. 2,830 miles an hour is not the number it's actually travelling at. All of these have been changed to 30, and I can show you if I click on that one, it says 30. If I click on this one, it says 30. You can also do that through clear. So at the moment, I've got this one highlighted. I can click clear and it will get rid of it. If I hold control and click clear, they all go. And then if I hold control, change and do 30, they all come back as 30. You can also do this for stopping times, same with change and clear. So I need to change these back to 10 and 20. Like so. And then here I need to change that to 10 and 20. And already I've realized my mistake, because this one here should also be 10 and not 20. There we go. And I think, let me just check on the speed limit sheet. Wrong one. I think out of here, that's also the wrong one. Where is it? There it is. So yeah, out of Buntown it is indeed 30, and I think I'll check the loop here as well. Yeah, it's 30 all the way up to GSG. So that's fine. So that one I did change, didn't I? To 10. The one above it should be 20. Yep. Okay, and then here, coming out of this, this one actually here, should also be 10. It does a weird thing when it does the conditional order jump. So when it reaches GSG Overground West, in this case, in a minute it'll be slightly different, but when it reaches here, before it goes to GSG, it will check its reliability. If the reliability is more than 20, then it will jump to this order. If it's not, then it will come down to this one. But it uses this speed limit rather than this one, which I guess makes sense. It gets a little confusing if you add more conditional order jumps, but because I only have one per timetable, it does make sense. It also does warn you. You can see the little triangle at the bottom here. Timetabling conditional orders is not recommended. And again, I think that's one of the downfalls to this timetabling system that I use for this series. It's not the most reliable way, particularly at the start, before it starts spreading trains out. The HLR is a good example of this. I have a lot of trains bunched up on the HLR because they were all released from the depot at the same time. Scheduled dispatch, I think, would actually solve that problem. I do think that this system that I'm using now does eventually solve the problem, but it takes a few cycles to do so. And because I've had to reset a lot of lines all over the network, it's not yet actually done all of those necessary cycles. So it is a little finicky, shall we say. Right, that's the timetabling done. Before I sort of commit those and move on, there is a little something that I want to do here, which is to go here, buy just a bog standard steam locomotive like so. I'll pin that for a second and I'll put you up here. The reason being, I'll rename this as well. Buntown Overground Depot, whoops, to GSG. This is my template loco, or template train. This basically means every time I have a new service on the overground that starts and ends at Guard City St. George, instead of having to make this each and every time, what I actually do is I have a train sat in a depot near the main depot that has the same orders as this currently has. Now, like with signals, there are two ways to get the same orders per train. You can either do the bog standard, do the go to. So actually one of the things I should teach you is go to is G on the keyboard. So sometimes you might see me press G instead of actually clicking on that. So if you wanted to know what that is, it's you press G on the keyboard and it does go to. Now there's two ways of sharing orders. And sharing orders isn't actually the right word in this case. There's two ways to have two trains with the same orders. The first one is to just click G and then click on the train, and it will copy all the orders over, and if there's anything in the timetable it will copy those over as well. The second way, before I show you that, if you click on end of orders here and just hit delete, it gets rid of all of the orders in that vehicle's list. The second way, and this actually does share orders, is if you click go to, hold control and then click on this train and then scroll down to the bottom, you'll see it says shared orders. So this means if I make any amendment to this set of orders here, I've just realized I've put this up in a corner where you can't see it. Let me move this over. So yeah, if I make any amendment to this set of orders here, as long as this says shared orders, this set of orders will also be amended, and that goes for the timetable too. So if I change anything here, it will also change this vehicle's timetable. To get rid of shared orders, you go here and instead of delete, it says stop sharing. If you click on that, then you come up with end of orders, and if you click that again, it gets rid of all the orders. So in this case, I just want to copy the orders, I don't want to share them. So that's now done. I'll do this off camera, but normally I add this to a separate vehicle group, and that way you can see all the template vehicles, and then you can copy orders from them from there rather than having to click on the depot each time and do it that way. So I am actually going to leave this open for the time being because I am going to have a couple of overground services running from GSG. I'm only going to show you this one on camera though. So we're going to go back to this. Now we've got the template vehicle done, we can start messing around with this vehicle's orders and actually set it up to operate the overground service. So in this case, GSG is where we start. Click on the conditional order jump here, and then select this twice. And we're going to do this all the way around the overground loop. So in this case, I have to watch out that I get all the waypoints as well. Because if you miss a waypoint, particularly in this section of the line, you could end up running a train on completely the wrong set of tracks, and it might take you a while to realize, by which point it's almost unfixable. And I did that a lot with the HLR, and it's very annoying. So I'm going to be quite vigilant here to make sure that I don't do that. So this is now officially the overground loop. Runfingwell South is the last station before the overground loop. The overground loop itself is not a complete circle. It has the two diverging lines. There's this one here, and then if you come over to Little Flanville, there's this diverging line here that go to GSG. This line here actually continues up to Bunhattan, which is not part of the overground loop. And this line here is not part of the loop anyway, but goes to GSC, which is also a terminus station. So it is possible to have a train complete the loop from GSG to GSG, but it joins and leaves the overground loop. And I'm saying that it's nothing to do with, again, with scheduling tutorials, but in terms of my network, it's the way it was designed. A bit like the Circle Line in London doesn't run in a complete circle anymore. And the reason they did that is actually quite smart. If a train just does a continuous circle all day and gets delayed, then all trains behind it will also be delayed. And eventually the entire service will be in chaos because trains are arriving 20 minutes after they're supposed to. But because trains don't run in a complete circle anymore, they do the loop from Edgware Road to Edgware Road. But then some trains terminate. So I think it's the anti-clockwise trains terminate at Edgware Road. And then the clockwise trains terminate at Edgware Road and then return anti-clockwise to Edgware Road. The trains that come in from the anti-clockwise direction actually continue on to Hammersmith, and it's that little spur down at Hammersmith that enables the delay thing to stop. So it's just the fact that trains terminate and then leave again means that other trains, if there is a delay, other trains can go into a different platform and then take over that service. It's kind of clever, and that's kind of what I wanted to replicate here, because trains do get delayed on my network a fair bit. If you go on the departure windows, you'll see that happen all the time. Trains get delayed. So this is where one of the power switchovers is at Woodside. You can see the overhead lines go into the sidings here, the third rail continues. And this is where we come to one of my favourite bits, actually, of the overground loop, which is the New Rennington section. So I have to make sure that my train runs on the overground north section here, and then runs up here into New Rennington. I'm going to have to turn off these notifications. I'm sorry if you keep hearing them. My Facebook chat seems to have blown up today. So yeah, New Rennington, then St Mark Tunnel, and then Guard City St Mark. You can see what I mean by it's a little wayside station that's a little ways away from the main station, but is still part of it. Then we've got Stillington Overground. Then we've got Prathing Way. And then we've got this waypoint here, which is a little bit more important in a second when we come to do the speed limits. And again, speed limits are subjective. Some people use them, some people don't. There's no right or wrong answer really as to whether to use them or not. I use them for realism. The trains themselves, when they run, they do have kind of a built-in operating speed for certain corners. So if you have two 90-degree turns, one after the other, the train will slow down for those. Whereas I like to do it in advance of those corners, which you'll see in a minute. I'll talk you through it in a second. So we're almost done. Got a little ways to go still in terms of this, but once we've done all of this planning... Wow, my chat really is blowing up today. I don't actually know if OBS is picking those up. I don't think it is actually, because I've got desktop audio turned off. So maybe I can relax a little bit. So there's Slenston, where we're actually stopping this time. We're not going through. Same here with Genford North. Although, I mean, I set Genford North there, but I don't think I needed to. I might go fix that in a second. Crichton's Cross. So we're almost at the end. Got a few more stations to go. Corn Exchange, which used to be St Christopher's Exchange, but I renamed it. Then we've got Barnwell Crescent, where again we will be stopping this time, whereas we didn't before. Then we've got Hunway Depot overground south. If you're wondering why this town's called Hunway Depot and why the land looks a little weird here, there actually used to be a major depot here that served GSG, but I moved it long time ago now actually. I'm trying to think how long ago it was. It was during the McJeffries network. I moved it over to Plintbridge Parkway. I'll show you up here. And when I did that, I actually built a new town here and called it Hunway Depot in respect of what used to be there. Right, so we are now done with stations, apart from one more, which is GSG itself. And this time we only need one call at GSG, because all trains that enter on the overground loop will be leaving again. So if we go back to the timetable, you can also see here, this is a little tip as well, if I click timetable it opens this window, and if I click orders, normally it will close the timetable window and reopen the orders window. But if you pin them, like I've done here, you can actually have both open at the same time, which is quite handy. So if I realise as I'm doing this that I've missed out an order, I can quickly jump over to this screen and add that extra order in. And again, I need to make sure that you can actually see the full window. Yes, you can. Good. Right, now I know that we've just done all of this setup for the train in the corner here that you can't see, but I'm actually going to redo all of this again. So I'm going to do Control, and I'm going to set it all to 41 ticks. Now 41 ticks in the game settings that I've got is roughly 10 seconds, give or take. You might wonder why 10 seconds, and the answer is if you actually go to, it's not so much on the metro, so like London Underground and London Overground and DLR, sometimes it's a little bit longer, but if you go to a conventional railway station, wait for a train to stop, and count roughly how long it takes between the doors first opening and the doors closing and the train leaving, it is about 10 seconds on average. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. And it might seem a bit far-fetched. You might think, really? That doesn't sound like long. But you just count to 10. Like, just count to 10 right now. You see that it's about the right amount of time. Sometimes it's 15 seconds, sometimes it's 20. Sometimes, particularly on Thameslink now, at London Bridge, I think there's a 2-minute layover they have there now. So it can fluctuate. But more often than not, it's about 10 seconds. I need to get the schedule up again. So 4,800. That's how long we need to wait here. And then all of these other stops are now set. So I can come down to New Rennington, which is down here, where it's not 41 ticks, it is 480 ticks. I should have just done the maths actually, 20 to 2. And then we also have a GSG here, which is 4,800. and then keep going down to New Rennington again, 480, and then finally this GSG here, 4,800. Actually, it's not finally at all, because there's this one here which also needs to be changed to 7,200. Something else to remember is when you have a conditional order jump, for some reason the travel time counts as a stop time. So here 41, and if I stretch this out a little bit further, you'd see this is also 41. So I always just clear that and let it sort itself out. So now we've got to do speed limits, which actually on the overground is quite easy. It's mostly just 30 miles an hour. Again, I'll make sure that these are all changed. I'm trying to blitz through this bit as quick as possible to actually get to the good bit of the tutorial again. So I'll change all my speed limits in and out of the station. This is what all the waypoints are for. It's something that I did, for those of you that are new to the M4J network, I had a previous series called the McJeffries network where I actually built most of this map that you're seeing now. And towards the end of that series, I started something called the Realism Initiative, where I actually made it so that a train didn't just hit a waypoint and go from 100 miles an hour down to 10. I actually had a series of waypoints that slowly bring the speed of a train down to the right speed. And the maximum speed that I do these increments by is 10 miles an hour. So one waypoint can only shave off 10 miles an hour. That's why I have two waypoints coming out of GSG, because the speed limit in and around the station is 10, but the speed limit on these lines here is 30. So there's two waypoints, so it goes 10, 20, and then 30. So what am I looking at here? I'm actually checking that the speed limits are consistent. So when we get to Nenfingbourne, is it after Nenfingbourne? No, it's here. The speed limit actually goes from 30 up to 40 briefly. I do have a set of rules. I've not written them down. I've not really talked about them in videos, to be honest. But I do have a set of rules as to what kind of curves equate to what kind of speed limits. It's quite obvious, really. So like out of Runfingwell South, particularly as there's a lot of junctions involved. I put it over on this side so you can actually see it. So you come out of Runfingwell, you actually come across to these two centre tracks here. So 30 miles an hour is quite a reasonable speed for that. Plus, all trains are moving at the same speed on this section of track, so it might feel slow, but in terms of the flow of vehicles, it's actually quite consistent. So this drops down to 30. I don't know why I decided to change that one. That one was fine. And then Rinfingford and Queen's Park. So the next two, it actually goes back up to 40. Like so. And then the next one, it drops down to 30 again. And then it goes up to 44 times. So that one's 30. The next four are all 40. 40, 40, 40, and 40. I do recommend, if you're not interested in this side of the tutorial, that you skip ahead slightly, because this can take some time. The short ones, so like when I did the HLR, the speed limit was fairly consistent throughout, so it took me about half an hour. The longest one, which I think was one of the Great Eastern, might even be one of the Great Western ones, took an hour and a half to actually do. So if it's looking like it's going to be a long time, I might cut some of this out. So when we get to here, it's all 30. So did we get to Woodside? No. Why didn't we get to Woodside? What have I done? Queen's Park? Have I missed an entire section of the... No, I haven't. Oh no, we did get to Woodside. Reading the wrong bit. So from Woodside, round to... In fact, all of the southern section now is 30 miles an hour. Except for 20 between Guards City St Mark and Stillington Overground, which is this little section here, because there's two quite tight curves with some tunnel in between. Also, between Victoria Curve East and North, goes down to 20. So my advice for doing the speed limits is find the speed limit that is the most used in your schedule. So in this case it was 30 miles an hour. Set it all to 30 miles an hour and then just change the ones that need to be changed. You do actually save quite a bit of time doing that. St Michael Overground to Little Binningbury East actually goes back up to 40 because it's a long straight piece of track. But then the next section here is 20, and I know I just said that the maximum increment is 10, but because it actually stops at Little Binningbury East, it doesn't matter if there's a 20 gap, because it will always stop and then start again, and that discounts the fact that there's a sudden change. If there's freight trains, then, which there will be actually freight trains running on the overground loop as well, the speed limit will be 30 for those all the way across anyway, so it won't make too much of a difference. So now it is 30 again until Slenston Overground Tunnels, where it drops very briefly to 20 because of the sharp curve, and then it's 30 until Genford Overground. Did I miss out a waypoint? I think I missed out a waypoint. I'm trying to find the overground loop. Yeah, I missed out a waypoint. See, this is where it's useful, because now I can just go into the orders list, find Genford North, which is there, and add the waypoint in. And I actually need to do that for the when it's running empty as well as actually take out Genford North. So here's what I do for that. I come up here, find Genford North, take it out, add this, because then trains will run through the middle here rather than through the platforms of Genford North. And likewise here, take out Genford North and do that. Okay. So I will have to go change those speed limits, which I'm going to do now. So you're 30, you are 20. Which means I actually need to add Crichton's Cross. It's annoying. So Barnwell Crescent, and then you do actually need to go via Crichton's Cross for the speed limit change. It's little mistakes like this that do make it take a little bit longer than it normally would. Where's GSG? There it is. So Guardsea Overground, Crichton's Cross. Did I say Guardsea Overground? I meant Genford Overground. You know what I meant. So Genford Overground. So you are 30, not 20. This one is 20. Okay, let's go back down. I think that's all of those change that needs to be now, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll go back down to Genford North here. So you are 30. You are 20. And then I think after that it is 30 all the way. Yeah. It's 30 all the way back to GSG, which is here, when it's 10 and 20. Now I wish there was a mirror tool. And what I mean by that is I wish that here I could just put a line and say everything that I've got here, mirror it and copy it below. Sadly there isn't, so you do have to go through and do the reverse. So that's what, 20, and then it's 30 all the way to Crichton's Cross, where it drops to 20. Normally by this point though I've kind of memorized where all the speed limit changes are. So between Slinston and Overground Tunnels it's 20. You can also look to see where the waypoints are, and that helps you as well. So Little Binningbury Overground to Little Binningbury East, that's where it goes to 20, and then Little Binningbury East to St Michael Overground is where it goes up briefly to 40. And then the Victoria curves, it also is 20. And like I said, these speed limits for me are just aesthetic. They don't actually, like, the train's not going to derail if it goes around a corner too fast or anything like that. It's for my own sort of personal satisfaction to do this this kind of thing. So yeah, GSMA and Stillington Overground, that also needs to be 20. That's where I lose my track a little bit. So all the way up to Woodside now, it's 30, and then after Woodside, it is, so yeah, Woodside to Brandington, Brandington to Rindingwell. So here, it's actually 40 for 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I just want to check actually between Rindingwell Overground, which is here, and Rindingwell Embankment, which is here. It's here. So I'm actually going to add an extra waypoint in up here, because that is a 20-mile-an-hour curve if ever I saw one. So let me add that in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And actually that will need to move, because there's going to be a bridge there in the not too distant future, I'm sure. So we'll put it, let's say, there. So you are going to be Rindingwell Bridge. So again, if I go on this set of orders here, find Rindingwell. So it's between Embankment, it's between Queen's Park and Rindingwell Embankment that we have the speed limit change. So that's going to go there, and then on the return, between there. And again, for those of you that don't know, if you want to add extra orders in, you always click on the bottom order, and it will always insert above that order. Just a little thing to bear in mind. So I've got to go all the way back up here now. Queen's Park, 30, no problem. Sorry, that one is right. 20 to Rindingwell Bridge, then it goes back up to 30 on the way back. Did we actually get to this bit? Yeah, 40. Then you should be 30. Oh, you're also 40 to Rindingwell Embankment, and then you're 30. And then you are 20. So I will actually have to add that into this. So it was between Queen's Park and Rindingwell Embankment. So here's how you do that. It's what I don't like about using Google Sheets, is you can't just add a new row in when you've got these ones here, because it will create a gap here as well. There we go. Right, so Queen's Park goes back up to 40 for 1. 1, 2. So Queen's Park here goes up to 40, and then also goes up to 40, and then Lay Hill to Runfingwell South, it goes to 30, and then it's 40 for 3 times. 40, 40, and 40 until we get to Nenfingbourne Loop, and then it drops to 30, and then here into GSG it is 10, and then you hop up above here to do 20, and that one between Gloucester Gardens, and that should be 30, and it is good stuff. Now for the last bit here, out of GSG, 10, 20, 30, that was fine. Little Flanville, Hunway Depot, Overground South, that's all fine. Barnwell Crescent, this one here should be 30. And then between Krypton's Cross and that, it should be 20, and then you should be 30. This should all be 30, except for these bottom three. That one's 10, this one is 10, and this one is 20. Okay, now we come to the important bit. I need to move this over so that you guys can actually see the full window, which you now can. Let me also turn this back into the service schedule so you can see what I'm planning. So, reset late counter. This is if all of your vehicles in the schedule are running late. If you just hit reset late counter, it will set them all back to 0. And it's kind of like a kick up the backside to get them all running on time again. This can affect other services that use the same tracks though, so be careful that you don't do that. Because the other thing it does is it bunches them all up again because they haven't started spreading themselves out. Normally when they're all running late though, they are bunched up anyway, so it actually goes some way to fixing that problem. We've also got things like confirm all. So you confirm all estimated wait and travel times as timetabled. Now I don't think I actually need to click this because once the train has gone through and got all of its orders, like once it's completed one cycle of the full timetable, then it should confirm them anyway. Expected, so this just switches between, it's like a view thing, switches between expected and scheduled. So I'll keep that on that. That shouldn't have changed that. That number went up considerably high then. You can also see down here, currently the order will take 3 hours 12 minutes to complete. And that's not including journey time. So this is actually quite a long schedule that I've got going here. And then finally we've got automate, which also ties in with this. So separation settings. You've got 5 options. You've got auto, off, manual time, manual number, or buffered auto. Auto is it will automatically separate all the vehicles. So if you have 20 vehicles and it takes 3 hours 12 minutes to do the entire schedule, it will do 3 hours 12 minutes divided by 20, and that's how often it will release a vehicle. That works fine, except I want vehicles to be released at a set time rather than just automatically separated. Off means they'll all just run to their own devices. Manual time, which is the one I actually use. So in my case, I will set this time to, I think it's 2,400. Yeah, every 10 minutes I want a train to run around the loop, which is actually quite a lot. Then you also have manual number, which is you set a number of vehicles to be active at any one time. I think that's what that is. And then buffered auto, it works the same as auto, but it always keeps one vehicle back. So because the depot, which you can't actually see on the screen, also you can't see because the timetable's there, the depot counts as order number 1. Some people have a set of sidings as order number 1. Either way, it will keep a vehicle in that place, that location at all times. So every time a vehicle enters the depot, it will release the next one. And that's what it means by buffered. So you've always got one vehicle sitting back just in case. So manual time, 10 minutes. I'm then going to hold control. If you just click automate, then it will just automate the timetable, but it will also change all the stopping times. If you hold control and click automate, it will automate the travel times, but it will not change any of the wait times. And that's preferable for me. With the new system though, it will constantly update this timetable. So if it takes 12 ticks to start with to travel between 2 stations, but then the next time it takes 15 ticks, it will actually update this for you by itself, which is very handy. It didn't used to do that, and it was an absolute nightmare. Whereas now Automate does exactly what it says on the tin. It automates everything. So I can come out of this. The final thing to do, on the final bit of the tutorial, is actually cloning with shared orders. So there's 2 ways to clone. You could just, actually there's 3 ways, or 4 ways if you want to be really picky. You could just buy a new train and then do the control click or the go to click, and that will copy the orders. Or you see this little icon here and also this icon here, the clone train. If I just do clone train and click on this, it will copy the orders. If I do clone train and then control click on this, it will share the orders. Or With this, if I just click on it, it will copy the orders with a new train. If I hold Control and click it, it will share the orders with the new train. So I need, according to my formula, which badly needs updating, I need 20 trains to run this service. So if I hold Control and click on this 19 times, we should now have, if I go onto here, go Timetable, and you see this very small icon down here, show all vehicles that share this schedule. You can see there are now 20 vehicles that have the same orders and the same timetable. Very handy to have that, because now if I change the orders on any of these, the other 19 vehicles will also have their orders updated. It is a very useful tool. Besides that, I think that is it for the tutorial. It's been a long one again, an hour. I do apologise for that. Now you get a taste, for those of you who are long-time viewers of the series, now you get a taste of why I time-lapse when I plan out these services, because it takes an hour to do the shortest ones. It takes a lot longer than that to do the longer ones. It can take anywhere up to 2 hours to get some of the longer ones in. And actually next main episode, episode 15, I'm supposed to do all of the stopping services out of GSMA, which is going to be a headache in itself. There are 3 separate franchises currently that operate out of Guard City St. Mark, not including the Overground. So that gives you an idea as to why it takes a while to produce some of these videos, that's for sure. So off camera, I'm going to go fix the template train because I need to add the Krypton's Cross and the waypoint thing in. The other thing I'm going to do here very quickly is if train carry passengers, next order is Genford North, or if next order is, and then the waypoint here, just so that the trains leaving the depot can actually go straight through. I don't think, did I do the signals over here? I know earlier on I said I don't think I did. Maybe I did do them. No, I didn't. So I'm going to have to do that before I can release the train as well. So I won't actually release the train on camera because it will all be chaos. But I will go through and fix all of those in the next episode, or the next live episode, which I think is going to be... Let me show you my episode plans. Let's check you can actually see this. Yep. I love having the Chrome window up. So we're currently here. I can tick that off now. We've done that. So episode 15 is Complete Skeleton Guard City Services by creating services out of GSMA. So I think episode 16 and 16.5 will be the next live build episodes. I don't actually know what I'm doing for 16 yet, but 16.5 I'm using some of the name suggestions that people will have left quite a long time ago now on the name suggestions sheet. So I haven't recorded episode 16 yet, or 16.5. So if you want your suggestions used in 16.5, then you've got at least a week, I would say, to hop on over to the name suggestions sheet. Link is in the description, and leave your suggestions there. Franchise names will not be considered because they are part of the Patreon pledge tier system. Same with route names now. In fact, I might even remove the route name suggestion. I'll leave the road name one, but the main line, the railway one, I'll remove because that is part of the Patreon tier system now as well. But yeah, any questions that you guys might have, feel free to head over to Reddit, find the post with this video shared, and drop some comments there. I still won't be activating comments on YouTube just yet. I might reactivate them in the future, but not right now. So use Reddit if you have any questions. Or if there's anything I've missed out, let me know there as well. And I'll happily amend, either add a comment with a response to that, explaining the thing that I've missed out, or better yet, might even make a little extra bonus video and include that in the link to my reply. But yeah, thank you very much guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you enjoyed the series overall. Like I said, head over to Reddit if I've missed anything out, or if you just want to talk about the series in general, that is the place to go. Besides that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support, and until next time, I will see you soon.